Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Before this blizzard comes along and ends us all, I'll let you know which center the Vikings should pursue in free agency.
Hi, this is Arif Hassan with Pro Football Network. I'm wearing a hoodie recommended to me by Miles Gorham, who once told me that when he played against Adam Thielen in high school, Adam Thielen wasn't good at football.
And I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Everything but excited to talk to you about the Minnesota real estate market on this here sports podcast.
It's the Minnesota football party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota football party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota football party. And it starts now.
Welcome in. I'm Sam Ekstrom. It's the Minnesota football party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Happy Monday to everybody. You can find me on Twitter at Sam Ekstrom or on the Ron Johnson Show. You can read Arif Hassan at Arif Hassan NFL at Pro Football Network, and you can listen to Luke Braun at Locked On Vikings. You can also see him too. That's available on YouTube. It's multi-platform, just like we are here at Locked On Sports Minnesota, Amazon Fire, Roku, on YouTube. Subscribe there, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And we're brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Topics today, gentlemen, include Za'Darius Smith selling his house, free agency preview, offensive line. Who do you want for the Vikings? And we'll, of course, talk XFL rules, because why wouldn't we? Because we have like the preeminent semi-pro football expert on with us, Arif Hassan. Oh, and the big news of the weekend, Blake Brandel re-signed. We got to talk about that.
And Tonga.
And Tonga. Now, the local real estate scuttlebutt that Luke Braun is going to rant about is that Zadarius Smith has sold his home. Not really a climate where you would sell your home. It's not really a seller's market anymore. Not sure if he's just downsizing or what. But if that's true, could it be a signal that Zadarius Smith is on his way out of Minnesota? And if so, Luke Braun, is that a good move or is that a stupid move for the Minnesota Vikings?
I've already gone on record and said I don't think it's a very good move. Za'Darius Smith is one of the best pass rushers in the league. We don't really have any evidence to suggest that that's not going to be true again. And he's making like top 25 money. Like, this is a very efficient deal. And I don't think that cutting Za'Darius Smith and putting that $13 million elsewhere gets you more than just keeping it in Za'Darius Smith would. I also don't care about real estate news. We're going to find out what happens to him within a month. And guess what? The Vikings don't have to play any games between then and now. So we don't need to know ahead of time. He could just be moving. Maybe he wants to go to a different school district. Maybe he just wants to move across the street, downsize, like you said. We have no idea. I'll wait for somebody to report that the Vikings are thinking about cutting him or whatever. It's not the first thing that they would do. We already know Adam Thielen basically confirmed that they're talking to him about a pay cut. I wonder if they're doing the same thing with Harrison Smith. So it wouldn't make sense that this is like a done deal and we're just waiting to find out the news. When it happens, we'll know. I am fine to be patient. I don't need to know a month ahead of time by looking up. This feels like when like recruiting Twitter starts looking at flight paths for 17-year-olds. Like, we don't need to be this weird about it.
Yeah. I'll add on to this. There's like obviously 80 million reasons somebody might sell their home. I recently saw a YouTube video about why if your rental costs are less than 5% of what you'd pay for your I guess non-returnable or non-investment payment for housing, so that does not include like mortgage, but it includes interest and home maintenance and stuff like that, then you should rent instead of buy. And maybe he saw the same YouTube video. I don't know, man. So like,
it's likely.
There's all kinds of reasons someone would put up their house for sale. It's kind of ridiculous, but it does lead to a good jumping off point in talking about Zadarius Smith, insofar as the Vikings should not touch that contract except to extend him. There's no reason. And I don't even know if extending him is a good idea, right? Because he's up there in age. You might as well just take his contract where it is. It's at a pretty good spot. So, yeah, it wouldn't make sense to move on from him. He played extremely well last year.
The singular person who should have the most issue with Za'Darius Smith contract is Zadarius Smith.
Yeah.
Correct. That's correct. 4th in pressures, 11th in pass rush productivity. Like, I mean, Micah Parsons had 12 more pressures than Zadarius Smith, and he played in one more game, and he played like 300 more snaps. I mean, that's like a Micah Parsons level of pressure production. I think Micah Parsons is still better at getting home. He's more explosive. Like, he's not Micah Parsons, but just if you stack it up relative to his peers, Zadarius Smith was right there with the best. His cap hit, and it gets a little blurry between OLB and, edge sometimes, but cap hit would be 12th among OLBs per spot track, 14th among defensive ends. Super fair market value based on his production. Spot track says it's 17 million against the cap. Over the cap says it's only 15.5 million against the cap this year.
Both of those are deals.
Over the cap is usually more reliable. So let's say it's 15.5.
Yes.
That's an incredible value. You save 12.2. And guys, I don't love the pipeline. They didn't really take edges last year in the draft. They do have Luigi Villain, who didn't do anything. He was redshirted more or less.
Yeah, why did you start with that one?
Because I'm trying to figure out if they have like a diamond in the rough, because I'm pretty confident that DJ Wanham and Patrick Jones are
they're
not
it.
Everson Griffins waiting for an opportunity.
Right.
I don't think that's the case. And I'm trying.
Janarius Robinson's on the Eagles, right? So yeah,
they don't have anyone. So this is. I don't think they have just someone waiting in the wings like Daniil Hunter with Brian Robinson, right? This is not that kind of situation.
It really isn't. And
everyone gets so excited this time of year about cap space.
Yeah.
Like everybody, all they want is to make a bunch of money and like go into free agency with a whole bunch of money. It's like you are making, if you release Za'Darius Smith, you are making a dire emergency problem on the roster. Like this if you release Za'Darius Smith and you do not replace him, you just sank a season. It's that bad. Like do we not remember how 2020 happened? That was an emergency situation on that.
Yeah. The whole
deal
did
not set the edge to save their.
Yeah, the whole deal with cap space is that it is a series of problem-solving maneuvers, right? You're fitting everything into basically a jigsaw puzzle. So if you cut a player, you have to replace him. Every team enters the season with 53 on their active roster, right? And so you cut a player, you have to replace him. Now you might replace that player with a cheaper contract, right? It is very possible to do that, but the question is, are you gaining more wins per dollar, right? Is the amount of wins that you've added in free agency greater than the number of wins you lost with your cap cutting moves? And that's the primary function of all of this. And I think people kind of forget that sometimes. They're just like, hey, Vikings are lost in cap space. Here are the 7 biggest cap hits. Well, you can't cut Kirk Cousins. So here are the 6 biggest cap hits besides Kirk Cousins. Let's get it real. And it's just like, they're not going to get more wins per dollar by finding.
The goal isn't to surplus, isn't to amass cash. The goal is to amass players, good ones. And hey, we've got one of those. Let's keep him.
Yeah, like you don't get points at the end of the game for the extra cap space left over. If you did, that'd be a wildly anti-labor move. But outside of that, would be kind of funny.
Much to the chagrin of Ryan Poles, it doesn't work that way.
Right? Yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals would absolutely love that sort of maneuver, right? The Raiders, the Bengals, I guess the Bears, right? Yeah.
I would rather cut Dalvin Cook. I would rather cut Eric Kendricks, who's the cap savings between Kendricks and Hunter is not that. It's like 9.5 versus what we just say, 12.2. It's not that much. I get a little more nervous about cutting Smith and Thielen with that level of dead cap. Like, I think those guys are clear restructure candidates. I see the appeal in saying, this is the biggest way we can amass cap space, but at a position of great value at edge rusher, you're really going to get rid of one of the top 10 in the league last year who's signed at a bargain. And he's not like, I think he got this like old stigma, this kind of ageist trope that, oh, this guy is old. He's washed up. He's hurt. He's 30. He's 30. He's not that old.
Yeah. Once you turn 30, you might as well be 80 because now the number in front is a 3 instead of a 2. And that means that it's over.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I will say, like, if I was choosing between Eric Kendricks and Za'Darius Smith, certainly I would explore options to reduce Eric Kendricks' cap hit, including potentially cutting him. But I wouldn't want to cut him either way, right? Because you're replacing Jordan Hicks with Brian Esimo, who you're replacing Eric Kendricks with, right? They have let go of, I believe, their inside linebackers coach, right? So they're going to bring in a new one. I don't know if they have yet. I have not been as up to date this offseason as I should be, but I would imagine that person would absolutely want to work with Eric Kendricks and firing a defensive coordinator after 1 year is a good indication that you should not trust the fact that previously great players suddenly were not great, right? Like that's an indication to you that maybe that defensive coordinator's defense was not putting players in a position to succeed. So I would trust the pattern of success that we've seen from players like Harrison Smith and Eric Kendricks and so on. Now, Dalvin Cook not producing, that is a conversation we can have. Plus, running backs and that history of production and stuff like that. But the Eric Kendricks thing for now, I wouldn't touch it. But yeah, if I was going to choose between Zadarius Smith and Eric Kendricks, I'd keep Zadarius Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Now here I thought that no coaches wanted to come to Minnesota because we don't have a very good roster.
Oh, no. It's tough.
Flyover country and all.
Yeah, it's cold. The cap space is situation. People don't want to come here.
Which the defensive coordinator is solely responsible for.
Right.
And so that's their problem that they would inherit.
Yeah, and no one wants to work with Kirk Cousins, obviously. So you can't bring in a defensive coordinator because of Kirk Cousins for some reason. It's tough. I mean, it sucks that the Vikings were left with a bottom tier candidate like Brian Flores. Nobody wanted him.
Yeah,
I'm laughing
and
at
he didn't want. He wanted us, so we had.
I'm laughing at Arif's comment, but also like we're dealing with such a conundrum with Luke Braun's internet right now that the frames that he freezes at are so hysterical.
So perfect.
That
Arif
and I are just having a ball over here. If you're listening, I would suggest going and watching because it is worth the price.
Please don't.
Absolutely. What, Luke? I've already tweeted out some of these. It's
in the ether.
I'm incensed.
You can't escape it now. All right, let's dive into offensive line targets and free agency for the Vikings. After I remind folks that we are fueled by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You can sign up and get the no sweat first bet up to $1,000. Bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Safe, secure, super easy to use. The NFL is done, but the NBA is just heating up. All-Star break this past weekend. About 20 games to go in the regular season. Spreads, money lines, totals, points, rebounds, assists, same game parlays to trigger a bigger payout, exclusive bets like 3-pointers in the first 3 minutes, stuff like that. Don't miss your chance to get the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 back in bonus bets at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel. All right, we're going through the free agency wish list for the Minnesota Vikings, and we focus on offensive line today. The next area of potential need for the Vikings, I would say, center, perhaps guard depth. They just re-signed Blake Brandel to support their tackle position. We'll get into that, but I give you guys the floor. Let's start with Arif. You can go any position, tackle, guard, center, whatever you want. Who are you circling? Who do you have a little check next to their name? Who do you like the Vikings to pick up?
I think in terms of probable value, I mean, we don't know what these players will eventually earn in free agency, what their contracts will look like. But my guess on what their contract value is versus the return they'll provide to the Vikings versus the positional value that we're looking for, probably go for Dalton Reisner over with the Denver Broncos. Has a good understanding of the types of schemes that the Vikings would want to run, is a fairly competent player in both the run and the pass, would be a pretty massive upgrade at guard. Obviously, I am more down on Ed Ingram than a lot of other people. And so, a lot of people say, hey, second year, give him a chance. I agree. Make him compete, right? I don't think that he should be handed the position by virtue of being a second-year player. I think there should be healthy competition. One great thing about Dalton Reisner is he was scouted as a center. He played tackle, I believe, at Big 12 school, like Kansas State or something like that.
Kansas State.
Yeah. But he was scouted as a center. He played guard a lot for Denver, but he also cross-trained at center for them. So, this isn't me punting on center for a guard just because I don't like Ed Ingram. But I do think that having somebody that can play both guard and center is a pretty big value here. I think Dalton Reisner has the ability to do that.
It's always a value, regardless of like what the situation
No,
is, because
Mm-hmm.
like Ingram could get hurt and then you need it, right? I was gonna go a little more small potatoes because outside of just like bringing back Garrett Bradbury on like $6 million a year or whatever, like that seems like the bargain thing to do, and not in a bad way. Like that seems like
Not
the
according to
cost-efficient-
Spot Track. Oh my gosh!
I'm
Have
looking
you seen their
at
estimate?
Brad Spielberger's. I'm looking at Spielberger's estimates. He's really good at guessing contracts, so I'm kind of putting my faith in him.
Yeah. Spot Track, I think for offensive linemen does starts, which I think is a pretty poor way to evaluate Garrett Bradbury.
Well, he started games.
Started a lot of games.
They count.
Yeah.
So I was gonna go smaller. But to Arif's point about like possible competition about for Ed Ingram, Max Garcia. He's somebody I've been asking for a while. He's older, veteran.
I believe you can also play both.
He can play center. Oh, cool. Perfect.
Pretty confident. Yeah.
Yep. So that's somebody I've asked for in previous off seasons. He's older. He's not somebody that's going to break the bank so much, and he doesn't like. I wouldn't bring him in and anoint him with the starting center role. I think he would have to go elsewhere for center, but I think he would give you like a nice floor, like Ed Ingram, be better than this guy, and then you get the start. And
he
you
played
can kind of
center
have that
at Florida and was on the Remington Trophy watch list. Yeah, he could play center.
Sure, that's good enough. We had Chris Reed in there last year. That's better than that. But yeah, I think that could be it. Or honestly, Chris Reed himself.
Yeah,
I still think is reasonable right guard competition for Ed Ingram. He got hurt in the last year in camp, but I actually think he could have given Ingram a run for his money if he didn't.
Yeah. Also, Will Hernandez, big guard.
There are some people who are very plugged in to the 2018 draft who are freaking out to hear that he is avail.
Oh my gosh.
People were very mad.
A reason I'm more referencing the Jonathan Gannon video, but
I couldn't watch it. I saw what everybody said about it, and I was like, I'm out.
Give me the clip notes.
Experience this.
Clip notes.
Extremely awkward looking, and I am somebody that makes fun of people a lot, but I try to set pretty clear boundaries of what I will and will not make fun of, and it is very hard for me not to make fun of Jonathan Gannon's interactions with the players. Extremely awkward. Had a very unusual set of interactions with, I forget which defensive player, but just had like, one of those like, hey, good to meet you, kind of an awkward pause, and then he just did a and everyone was like, why would you just do that unprompted? Why would you do that? And he's like, explosives. We're gonna get explosive plays. And you're like, but oh god, that's so awkward. And when he met Will Hernandez, he was like confirming in his brain that it was Will Hernandez he was meeting, is what it seemed. He was like, he taps him on the pec, and he's like, Will Hernandez, big guard. Like, oh man, how did this guy get multiple interviews? This is rough.
It's
like,
this guy got hired as a coach.
Yeah.
Oh, have you ever gone for a handshake and then somebody else goes for a fist bump, and then you're like, oh, you're going for a fist bump, I'll go for a fist bump, but then they're going for a handshake, and it's like that energy for a whole conversation.
Yeah, the whole video is that, except one person is in the wrong the whole time, and it's Jonathan Gannon.
He's the only person being awkward. Everyone else is totally normal.
Yeah, and like honestly, when's the last time a phenomenal defensive coordinator who crapped out in the Super Bowl got hired? Was it Matt Patricia with the Lions? Didn't see that going wrong.
I don't know. There was a pretty awkward guy who got hired with the Eagles, who ended up being in a Super Bowl, Nick Sirianni.
Do you think his pregame. Well, I guess his presser was pretty awkward, huh?
The presser,
that, like, famous
yeah,
one.
that was bad. Yeah, but the interactions
presser
with players to me matter more, right? Like that has real
Mhm.
Adam Gase energy.
Oh, God.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good comp. So that's that. I've got a wish list for centers. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I've got budget option. I've got medium option.
What would you have done
pricey
if I had said
option.
no? I don't want to hear it at all.
Then we would have moved on. We would have talked
okay.
XFL, but you said you wanted to hear it, so
I do. I was
hit 'em.
just curious. Let's go.
I've got budget, medium, pricey, and I've got stay away. Who would you
Stay
like to
away.
hear about?
I want
I want to hear the stay away.
Yeah.
Who are you absolutely out on?
Yeah. What is
He's-
this?
PFF's #1 center target, Ethan Posick.
Why do you want to stay away from him?
I
You
think
play
he's
all
coming
5
off.
positions.
He's coming off a pretty big outlier season. That's a little bit alarming at the price you would have to pay for an outlier season. You know, like Ethan Posick probably played under what kind of contract with Cleveland? Like I think that's the contract that he's probably worth. Let me confirm this before I say.
Okay,
a number.
but okay,
He played for a minimum. He played for $1.1 million for Cleveland.
Okay, I think your concern is fair. I will say 2 things. We put the 2 things. 1, he played for Seattle, and in previous iterations for Seattle, being an offensive lineman was awful. You did not get coaching.
Mhm.
So I'm not really gonna, and he switched positions like 8 times in Seattle. So I'm not really gonna necessarily hold that against him. 2, if we're going by PFF grades, my understanding is that he has improved basically every year. Seattle tried him out at like right tackle at first, I think, because I mean he's very large for a center, and so a lot of people projected him as a tackle coming out of college. That's not crazy unusual, especially given what Seattle has done on the offensive line historically, like converting defensive tackles and playing tight ends and stuff like that. Which hey, George Fant worked out. But yeah, I don't think that the history of production there is as useful an indicator as it typically is, because he is the recipient of multiple position changes, bad coaching, and he has improved. That said, there's a reason that he got a minimum contract in free agency last time. So I wouldn't say that he is necessarily I wouldn't have put him as the top target at center. In fact, I would have put some of these guards at the top target at center, like a Max Garcia.
You're right. He's improved. He's improved like each of the last 3 years.
Okay.
And he did have a nice year in Cleveland. He was 3rd in PFF rankings. That I think is just the body of work doesn't blow me away, and I'd be a little worried about that. I think that he's going to cost probably top of the line for centers.
Yeah, if he
year.
costs top of the line money, yeah, that's a fair stay away. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if
That's
you're
nice.
talking about a budget option as an
Yeah.
outlier, I would go with Jake Brendel, who was really good with the 49ers last year. Gave up 1 sack and over 1,000 snaps. His first season getting a chance.
Wait, yeah, did he only get 1 year, a 1-year contract? Is that what happened?
Jake Brendel? I think
Yeah.
Jake Brendel has been year to year. He's never really been.
Because I remember
More than a
advocating the
swing
Vikings
guy.
signing him a while back. I was like, let's go get this guy.
I mean, he's been on rosters, off rosters, practice squad, 1-year deals, waived.
Yep.
Like he's been
1-year deals every year since 2018.
Perfect.
was
Go grab
great.
him. He ran like a 4.25 short shuttle or something like that. Go
Yeah,
get
he's
him.
never made big money, so this might be the time.
Yeah, but he's 30. Like he's not going to get paid a lot. I think that's a budget option. Medium
yeah.
option, Bradley Bozeman, and it's probably not super medium, but he played for Carolina at $2.8 million last year. Played about half the year hurt, came off injuries. He was decent, not great. I don't think, and PFF estimates him at. Oh no, sorry, that was McGovern. PFF doesn't have him in their top 100. I don't think he makes big money, but he's only 28. Had a good track record in Baltimore. Carolina's a bad organization. They changed coaches mid-year. I'm not going to like that. I think is almost an outlier to the negative. Where
Yeah,
I think you could
I'll
get some
say-
value.
I'll say this about Bozeman. He has played well in the past. I don't regard him necessarily as a system fit. I'm not as tied to the issue of system fit as I used to be, but I do think that is a concern. I do like the attitude that he brings as a player, which, that has been an issue with the Vikings offensive line before. So I wouldn't be opposed, but it's certainly I would be, and this is where I'm like super irrational about draft picks because everyone is at some point. This is where I am. I'd be much more excited about Jake Brendel.
Never give up. Never wrong.
Yeah,
only early.
Jake Brendel is the kind of contract that the Vikings, I think, would love to give out because it's not going to break the bank. It's not going to be long term. You've got so many other liabilities that would not be an overcommitment. You know, giving 4 years to Ethan Posick might be an overcommitment.
I could see that.
If you do the like top end guy for 4 years and now it's like you're not drafting a center anymore, that feels like it's a less efficient way to solve the problem than something like Jake Brendel, take a guy in the 3rd round and then hope that 3rd round guy is ready by year 2 or 4th round or whatever.
Yeah. High end option is the Connor McGovern in my mind, just kind of a workhorse, doesn't miss games. He's played right guard.
Not a great center market, huh? Your high end options, Connor McGovern.
I mean, look at his PFF.
He's
pretty
fine.
Good. Pretty good. He's had success in 2 different franchises.
That's important. Yeah.
Okay, but speaking to your center market comment, Garrett Bradbury's in the top 100. I mean, Garrett Bradbury is their number 3 center.
Right.
Which
all right. Yeah. Okay.
I am flummoxed by. Really?
Just flummoxed.
Above Bradley Bozeman? Above Brendel?
Well, above Brendel's not that.
Brendel's my guy. They obviously aren't taking into account like value here. For Garrett Bradbury, if we're talking outliers, Garrett Bradbury is not a value play at all.
Yeah, absolutely not. That's the Garrett Bradbury's history of production concerns me far more than Ethan Posick's.
Do we agree that if Spielberger is correct, if Bradbury is worth 6.25 per year, not a chance he's coming back?
I don't know about
not a chance.
Pretty
reasonable. That's like not that much for a center.
That is a.
But it's because that's not that much. Like it's not.
Right.
You're not thinking you're getting a top 10 guy for that.
That's a center that you have not committed guaranteed starter money to. You're probably going to start him at $6 million a year, but you're not committed to it. If you get a better center, that $6 million a year contract is not going to stop you.
Vikings should have gone and gotten their center of the future last year. Center market was stacked.
Oh, you mean signed? Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's what I meant. Yeah. Free agency stacked. Could have done a fair 2-year deal, 3-year deal. They didn't do it. All right. Offensive line help is on the way in the form of Blake Brandel, who signed his IRFA deal. I think that was a foregone conclusion. Do you see him as merely the swing tackle first off the bench, or is there a world where he could maybe compete for guard?
I'd keep him a tackle.
Yeah, I'd keep him a tackle. And I wouldn't even call it a merely. I think that's an important job. Good for him. He's got it.
Yeah. And 6th offensive lineman. He'll see the field.
Oh, true. Yeah. Goal line packages and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Oli Udoh switch to guard didn't go well. The Mike Remmers switch to guard didn't go well. I do think we are a little scarred here.
Mike Harris, that went pretty well.
Unsuccessfully. That's what I'm saying. Like there are some pretty glaring examples of conversions gone wrong. I don't think that necessarily means it's always a bad idea.
Oh,
no, I just want us to have an open mind about this.
That was like Spielman just learning the wrong lesson from Mike Harris turning out, and then he tried it with like 3 other guys.
He tried it with Clemens.
I don't think he was behind the Udoh switch. I'm going to be honest here.
Well, I was talking about Clemens and Remmers. Once you get down to Udoh, then that's
I think that
5 years later. I don't know if that's having an influence. Like what happened 6
years ago. I think that was just like, well, we're out of guards. and I like this guy, so he's on the field now.
He had a good camp. All right, I will die by it. In week 1, it made sense.
Other side of the
he played the best in camp. What are you gonna do?
Other side of the line, Kairos Tonga signed. Was he an IRFA as well? I assume he was an IRFA. Signed his deal.
Yep.
I didn't realize this until I looked it up today. Tonga ranked 13th of all interior defensive linemen on PFF. 276 snaps. Not a minuscule sample size either. I know that sample sizes can be misleading, but that's not nothing. He was good, legitimately good. Where do you think he fits in the pecking order as of today?
I think he's your next guy in base, I guess, because they don't really have your like kind of classic, smaller, sleeker 3-tech type guy.
Yeah.
So if you had to play a game tomorrow, you would probably the Flores defense still uses 3 down linemen in the same way, in like quote unquote 3-4.
Right.
So he'd
Right,
probably
it's
be
game plan
along
to
that
game
line.
plan, right? Yeah.
Yeah, game plan to game plan.
Because
Because
yeah,
Bullard-
But yeah,
Bullard
typically
is
they'll
gone.
base there.
yeah.
Bullard is a free agent. They might re-sign him, but he's a free agent, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you return.
So I think he competes for that job. Or
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
he just turns into backup Harrison Phillips, and you're pretty happy with that too.
Yeah. What a
right now
backup.
you've got
It's a great
Phillips
backup.
obviously there.
Yeah. And he's got to
Tomlinson's
rotate off a
gone.
lot, so you'll see plenty.
Odamewo, Tonga, Blacklock.
Hey, Odamewo did come on late in
Yeah.
the season. That's fair. Yeah.
I just don't think there's a lot blocking Tonga from playing a big role, and I don't think the Vikings are going to invest heavily outside of their current investment. Like if they keep Smith, if they keep Hunter, if they keep Phillips, I don't think they're going to invest anywhere else on that line.
Yeah. Luke
So I-
Braun or not Luke Braun, Luke Inman. Sorry. Got the Lukes confused. You're all the same to me.
How dare you?
Apologize to him.
Luke Inman was like, "Hey, Brian Flores loves to invest in defensive linemen. Let's take a look at some of these defense." He was really gussied up. He was excited. He wanted to look at some defensive linemen, right? He was like, "Hey, what if Brian Brisset falls?" Which, that's not going to happen. But why not? Right?
Well, I like the idea of a draft investment. I just don't think they're going to put dollars into it. But I think that
yeah,
I think the back end of the first round, because Luke and I talked draft, I think that the back end of the first round, based on what I'm hearing from Spinman, is that it's full of like these versatile sort of 3 to 5 tech guys that can play a little inside, a little outside. Kalijah Cansey, big name. Bressie, big name. Maybe not available, but
probably not.
it's it's kind of rich.
Compiling these big boards, I actually am surprised by that analysis from Inman. I haven't watched these guys. I am just reading spreadsheets, but it does not seem like the industry consensus has a lot of interior defensive linemen as bottom of the first round capable. It seems like that's a thin position, but I'm kind of excited to see it play out, especially after the combine, where that's a pretty tremendously important event for that position. I think that we're going to see a lot of Bullard type investments. Maybe not Jonathan Bullard specifically, but Bullard type investments where it's like, hey, there's a reason this guy might pan out. We're going to throw a couple of dollars, maybe even above the minimum at this kind of contract and hope that they can compete. But this is not going to be, we're not going to be signing, a star 3 technique in order to get things going. We're going to sign a bunch of guys that have the capability to compete with Odamewo and Tonga to be potential starters. Maybe, by the time the draft rolls around, we'll also find a starter capable guy. But to me, I think you're right. They're going to invest probably a little bit more than nothing, right? They're probably going to invest more than just bottom of the roster camp body types that they need to rotate in. I think they want to throw some darts, but I think that you're right. I think that there's not going to be an enormous amount of dollars poured in.
This feels really likely to be a camp competition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, get your next Sebastian Thunderbucket,
There you go.
Safe to assume that
job.
Kwesi has given us his tell. Like Kwesi is looking for diamonds in the rough that come on rookie deals. They might be able to extract something more than the previous team got. I'm not sure that Ross Blacklock is going to be the shining example of this working, but I don't think it's a 100% success rate. Like I think that it's like more of a 20% success rate, and you keep taking those shots. And I could see him adding someone of that ilk via trade before the season.
I would say that of the dart throws that Kwesi made at the defensive line this year, they net turned out. Good work.
Yeah, Bullard, when healthy, fine.
Mm-hmm. Tonga,
great.
Yeah,
terrific. And Blacklock
showed something.
And
probably bad. Yeah, Odamewo. That's 2 out of 4.
I think so. Yeah, so you don't have like Blacklock didn't work out. Fine. Obviously, Harrison Phillips does not qualify as a dart throw, but net that turned out.
Saw a little breaking news this morning. Darren Doogie Wolfson said the Vikings are very interested in extending TJ Hawkinson. I think that's kind of it's kind of Captain
I love
Obvious.
Doogie. Sorry,
but it's also not like
Doogie will say anything.
I love Doogie. I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
wanna crap on him, but that's
that's not
yeah,
that's
they
a
are.
compliment.
Yeah.
No, I think it is an interesting conversation to have because of course the interest is there. Can you swing it?
Yeah.
Can you get the cap number down this year and still pay him a market setting
That's
contract?
how you get the cap number down this year. That's how you do it. You push it.
It's
you take you take
a
all
path
the money
with very little resistance. This is which
yeah,
rules.
exactly. You take hey, all this money that you're owed, you're going to get all of it this year, but accounting wise, it's going to count next year and the year after and the year after.
Yeah.
But you get to take all of it home and then some. The signing bonuses are magic. Players get their money right away.
And it makes you harder to cut for the next couple of years. So all that money that we didn't actually guarantee, you're probably going to be able to see.
Yeah, it's great.
I still think Detroit regrets that deal.
I can't believe they did it. I'll never understand it. Why did they do that?
Okay, so if I am the Detroit front office, I regret the deal. Detroit fans certainly don't seem to regret the deal because they were like, hey, after the trade, we started winning
games.
You have to do. Right. Yeah, they were 1-6 before the trade, right? And 6-1 right after it.
Clearly, he was the toxic.
Yeah. Locker room parasite.
Yeah, I think that turned out to be a bad deal for Detroit, but it did not express itself in the most base level outcome analysis that we have, which is wins. So, but hey, TJ Hawkinson, after the trade, TJ Hawkinson had almost as many catches for Detroit as Jameson Williams.
Oh boy! Speaking of trades with the Vikings, it's the BB bar. That's what I've been telling people about.
I'm still seeing comments that the Vikings, clearly the evidence demonstrates that the Vikings messed up that trade down with because of Jameson Williams, and it's like he had one catch. Now, mind you, from a market perspective, yeah, but if your argument is that the season has proved that the Vikings messed up that trade down. Again, Jameson Williams and Lewis Cine have almost the same number of catches. But
he scored against the Vikings, Arif.
Yeah, and it was a busted coverage. I want to point to remember. I think it was 2021, maybe 2020. That it was a crazy game in Seattle, which we've had a few of those.
Yeah,
Laquan Treadwell on a busted coverage, 56-yard touchdown. If you discredit everything Laquan Treadwell did in his career, except for that one busted coverage, he had a better season than Jameson Williams. That's being uncharitable to Laquan Treadwell.
I don't want to dig on Jameson Williams too much. It's totally understandable why he didn't have an enormous amount of production. He was injured. He came into the season late. He's remarkably talented at Alabama. If he turns out well, that's fantastic. But I just think it is very funny the way that conversation has evolved around him, given what we've seen.
It's so fun to bad faith stats about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just did. It's so great.
Yeah. That's the principle is you can't be mad about a player the Vikings didn't get if he doesn't cross the BB bar. Chad Beebe in 2020 got like 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you do not clear that level of production, you're not allowed to be mad that the Vikings didn't get him.
Did Laquan ever clear that level of production for the Vikings?
Laquan in 2019, I've been sitting on this, the year that Braun referenced his long touchdown, had a better yards per route run than Chris Godwin, Cortland Sutton, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Jarvis Landry, DJ Moore. He was 18th in the league.
In yards per route run?
Yards
Did he
per route
run like 9 routes?
He ran... why is it not like,
oh my God, he's a Seahawk.
Why does it not tell me?
Well, that feels inevitable.
16 targets. I don't know if that helps.
So like probably 30 routes or something like that. That tracks. That's good. That's good stuff.
Enthralling XFL talk and rules we would like the NFL to adopt after I remind you that the storm's coming. And you should probably stock up on Built Bars because if you don't have groceries, you need something quick. You need to survive these next 4 days. Having 17 grams of protein in a single bar doesn't hurt you. Also, it tastes good. So healthy, tasty, good combo. Get some Built bars with their delicious flavors and 100% real chocolate. Churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and super accessible. If you drive down to Walmart, go to the pharmacy section, grab a 4-box, self-checkout. You're in and out. You're back in your car. You're getting home, beating the snow. Sam's Club, same deal. Available there as well. Get a 13-bar box. And if you want to have a shipment coming your way for after the storm, Built.com, promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off. Built, you can thank me later.
Sam, I have a Q.
Okay.
Is that in the ad copy?
You could have said that anyway.
None of that was in the ad copy. It's totally
To what storm
extemporaneous.
are you referring?
You
Just
are
be very specific.
so preciously not online. It is. It is. I feel bad every time.
I get the Q joke you just made.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. That's all I wanted.
I've seen a documentary about this. So, how many minutes of XFL football did you watch this weekend, Braun?
All of it.
How many minutes? That was the question.
That's 320 minutes, no?
Be specific.
No.
Okay. 5 hours
No?
and 20 minutes.
240 minutes. What? Or I don't know how long.
4
the games
hours.
lasted.
There were
So
4
we're
games.
cheating off of this guy in math class?
Okay,
There were 4
16
games
hours.
at 3 hours each. That's 12 out. 12.
Why did I do that in
720
minutes?
should be the answer, right?
Yeah.
All right.
We're all
So
getting
Braun
C's for cheating off of this kid.
Braun has no idea. Luke or Arif. Arif, how many minutes? You have a
0.
brand to uphold here.
Yeah, 0. I will watch all kinds of XFL and USFL content this offseason, or maybe offseason is like a disrespectful word, but this spring league season. But I did not have the capability to watch any XFL this weekend. I did see some highlights. We got some Nooch going. That was pretty nice. We got an AJ McCarron comeback. That was pretty cool. Luke, if you were going to tell me that Ben DiNucci actually played poorly, I didn't see it and I won't hear it.
He did so many cool things and then he blew it at the end.
Yeah, that's
Was
what
truly
he
heartbreaking.
does, right? Did he? Okay, Luke, you watched the whole game. Did he ever throw the ball with an over-the-top delivery? Once.
Oh God. I didn't want
Loose
that
gives
close,
double
all
pass.
right.
Since you watched 720 minutes, Braun, and Arif and I watched a combined 0, give us like 3 bullet points.
Just
other
in
than
general on
Ben
the
DiNucci.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Brahmas defense is fascinating.
What is a Brahma? I'm not
a
online.
Brahma bull. It's like a kind of cattle, I guess, but it also originates from like the Hindu word for like a cow or a bull.
Okay.
Which is a dope aesthetic.
Hindu god specifically, but yeah.
Hindu god, yeah. It is a very sick aesthetic for the San Antonio Brahmas. That was very cool. The Battlehawks Brahmas game was awesome. The biggest headline is probably, speaking of rules, that because of the way that they do onside kicks, the Battlehawks were down 15 points with under 2 minutes to go and ended up taking the lead with 20 seconds to spare by scoring, going for a 3-point conversion, getting it. The onside kick, they elected to do the 4th and 15 instead, got the 4th and 15, scored another touchdown, 15 points.
Blake Prohl's brother.
Is that Blake
Right?
Prohl's brother? I wasn't sure.
Pretty sure it is.
Yep,
Austin
it
Prohl.
is. Yeah.
So, yep, that's a big one. And the Roughnecks look unstoppable. They're the only team to really blow somebody out.
Wade Phillips' team.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to snipe Wes? Is he going to have Wes call plays for a
For the
promotion?
XFL, probably can't match the contract, I don't think.
Yeah, that's
versus
the
an NFL
salary
budget.
demands of a salary will be tough.
Let's talk about the zany rule stuff. 3-point conversion. I am not a convert. I don't think, and as well as I'm not a convert to removing the like foot kicking based extra point. in favor of running a play. I don't want to take field goal kickers out of the game. I'm old school in that regard. Love the onside kick alternative.
Yeah, the 4th and 15, phenomenal.
I really like it.
Yeah, I'd been talking to this is not me saying that I came up with it. I'd been talking to Sam Schwartzstein, who is both the analytics consultant with like Amazon Prime Video. He does a lot of work with them. With the next gen stats and liaising with Amazon and stuff like that. He's a big part of their second broadcast, which is really cool. But also he helped design a lot of the rules for the XFL, including their awesome kickoff rule and the 4th and 15 rule. And I've been talking with him and a number of other analytics people that have talked about revamping the offside rule for a while. I think before the XFL was even a thing. And one of the ideas that the community came up with was this, turn it into a 4th down. So let's figure out what 4th down distance is somewhat approximate to the percentage that we kind of want for there to be an onside kick. Because onside kicks, obviously they have a low percentage when they're expected. There's a difference between unexpected and expected onside kicks. Sean Payton knows that, right? But the percentage that you want, I think people generally agreed with something like 4th and 17, and then we're all like, yeah, but that's stupid. We can't. Let's make it a nice round number and make it 4th and 15. So it's so cool that having that conversation a couple of years ago is translated into a product with professional football. And Sam has done remarkable work with the XFL. Justice has also done work with the XFL. But Sam, I can't praise Sam enough for how much he has helped with.
Thank you.
I mean, he's a big part of the kickoff stuff. Sam Schwartzstein. He's been a big part of the kickoff stuff. He's been a big part of helping design like rules like 4th and 15. So just shout out to him. This is really critical stuff because the NFL has adopted rules from other leagues before, including the 2-point conversion rule. They adopted that from both the USFL, the old USFL, and the AFL, which originally had it. It took until 1994 for the NFL to adopt the 2-point conversion, but it's still an AFL rule that they essentially sniped. They also took the fact that the clock is visible on the field from the AFL. Crazy that had to happen. And also names on the backs of jerseys. They took that from the AFL too. A lot of rules, and they've taken some stuff from like XFL and USFL stuff before. It's super cool that these other leagues essentially force the NFL's hands into being a more exciting product.
And the XFL is working in partnership with the NFL. They're very clear about that all weekend. They were pushing it really hard. Like, hey, we're working with the NFL. We are an NFL developmental league.
Yeah,
like,
this is
54th man and all that.
You're not shooting a Small Potatoes documentary with us. This is not happening.
Yeah. Well, it's that, but also like that they wanted to be really clear. Like, we have the support of the NFL and that entire infrastructure, and therefore we can survive.
So you can invest emotionally in us. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And also, when it comes to those rule changes, it is kind of a testing ground for rules. Another interesting thing they have is challenges. You only get one challenge, and you can challenge anything. There are not things that are challengeable or unchallengeable. You can challenge flags. You can say a flag should have been thrown on that play. You can challenge whatever you want. You only get one. And you have to have a timeout to throw it. And that turned out to be really interesting, because a team ran out of challenges and didn't have timeouts and couldn't challenge it was the Ben DiNucci fumble. They couldn't challenge it at the end. It wouldn't have been overturned, but you still kind of see the intrigue there of like, if you're at the end of the game and you don't have your challenge, you might get screwed. But on the flip side, you get a lot more options. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I love the incorporation of the Sky Judge as part of the broadcast. So the NFL has slowly, over the past 4 years, adopted a kind of a Sky Judge type situation with their New York instant replay review stuff. But the communication that you get from the officials to each other over the past 2 years, not just this weekend, because again, I didn't watch anything this weekend, has been extraordinarily educational for people watching. And it really, the NFL is always scared that more information might make fans more critical or less understanding or point to flaws in the process in order to hyper focus, but it always seems like it has actually produced a more tempered and more educated product. Like when the NFL was resistant to releasing the All 22, then they did, and football coverage improved tremendously. Yeah, you got people who didn't know how to watch it, and they posted stuff that didn't help and whatever. But for the most part, it improved things tremendously. I think this is the same thing here. All last both the USFL and the XFL did this, but every time that happened last, I don't know, year is the right word, but the last seasons that they held were fantastic. It really allowed us to see by what criteria the quote unquote sky judge is using to help make these calls, and it really improves fans' appreciation of the credibility of the officials, which is a goal that the NFL explicitly has. So I love that incorporation in there. It's fantastic.
It's super smooth. There was a really, really hard one in the Roughnecks game. It was a simultaneous possession thing. It was very similar to the Fail Mary, the replacement ref thing, where it probably should have been an interception, but they called it simultaneous possession and a touchdown for the offense. And you got to see Dean Blandino going, like, looking at every single angle, looking at just saying, I can't see the ball from that one. I can't see the ball from that one. And at the end of it, he said, I can't see the ball. We have to go with call stands. And I feel like that would have been such a controversial moment in the NFL if you didn't have the transparency of literally the guy making the decision going, yeah, can't see it, just got to go with it, and seeing that thought process and that transparency. And you're not hearing anybody talk about that as the moment of the XFL. And I think that's really good for the XFL.
One last note before we move on. That thing humanizes the officials too, right? And I think that's important, right? Because a lot of times when people are upset about the call, they're like looking at these, freeze frames that are released like 3 days after the game, and they compare these officials to a perfect computer that has all of the information available to them, and having a New York review New York, right? Like we're already, it's New York. It's the East Coast has decided this game. Right. But, but like having like, New York ruled in, they said it was a catch. And it's just like, well, okay, fine. Right. If that feels so,
it's like condescending almost.
Yeah. It's condescending.
Like,
it's alienated from like what the process was. It humanizes these officials and it gives you an understanding of how they make the decisions they make. I love it.
Yeah. NBA, since the Donaghy scandal, obviously they kind of need to do this. They've had much better officiating transparency. The announcements that they give, like after a review, are much more personal in nature. They like look right in the camera.
They are very funny. They're so, because they're looking down into like a bad webcam. It's great.
Yeah. But then they release the 2-minute report or the 4-minute report where they actually take accountability for bad calls. And that is so needed in the NFL game. One change that I kind of would like is the expedited play clock. It's like when they changed the college basketball shot clock by 5 seconds, it didn't affect the quality of play whatsoever, but it got more possessions, more shots up. It's harder to stall at the end of a game. And I think for all those reasons, that would be better in the NFL too, with the 35-second play clock. Get them running 1/8 more plays and up the tempo just a little bit. I don't think that would have a massive effect on the ability to huddle, the ability to get plays in. You can instead allow coaches to talk to them down to 10 seconds maybe, or 12 seconds, give them a little bit more time if they need it. I don't love stopping the clock on running the clock on incompletions. I don't think time of game is a complaint around the NFL. I think pace of game might be. Like, I think that you want to see more plays. And I don't need a faster game. I just want a more up-tempo game, if that makes sense. So that's a subtle one that I wouldn't mind adopting. Is that noticeable when you watch that they're like playing faster, Luke?
The pace, I didn't really feel the pace one way or another, which probably means it was pretty good.
Yeah, it probably means a good thing. Because you tend to notice when it's slower.
Yeah. It didn't feel like rushed or anything.
Yeah.
But there were only a couple of times where it went to like a really big, long, slow stoppage. But every time they did it, it was the officials trying to deal with something or a big review, and you always got into that process. So there was still something happening. It didn't just feel like, oh, we're into our 900th Whopper break.
Whopper. I will say that Sam, stop. They're not paying us. I will say that NFL games. My understanding is that NFL games are getting longer. I think that you're right that it is not a complaint currently, but it wouldn't shock me if it becomes a complaint very soon. I don't think that that's the solution. I think the solution is just fewer commercials, which is like a very difficult one to ask for because you're asking the NFL to not monetize, and it just you get addicted to that kind of stuff, even if it lowers the quality of your product and eventually decreases your potential revenue pool when it turns off people at the fringes. But I am glad that they're experimenting. I don't love that, but I'm glad that they're experimenting for sure.
We end the show as we always do with...
It's time to tell you who spilled their proverbial drink on the sofa. Get ready for this week's party foul.
Arif, why don't you go first?
Yeah, my party foul goes to Luke Braun. Get better internet, man.
Luke Braun.
I was
rebuttal.
also going to give it to my internet, but now that's been stolen.
Dang.
In an act of petty revenge, I'll give mine to Ben DiNucci, who had orchestrated a lovely comeback to beat the DC Defenders, who had been throwing literal lemons on the field. Their fans were rambunctious and out of line, and they were... DiNucci had a great chance to stick it to him and fumbled on the goal line. Seattle and first down... And goal line plays from the one with the game on the line, man.
I'll say this. He got screwed by the rules somehow. Don't know how yet. I'll find that out later. He played perfect.
Didn't. Yeah, both of those things are empirically false.
The NBA Skills Challenge used to be my favorite night of TV. Just not as good anymore. I need more star power. Load management is dumb, and it's even dumber when it's a skills competition. Like, why are the best players not competing in the little contests? Come on now.
They had plenty of star power. They had Karl Malone.
And with that,
certainly someone in headlines.
With that sobering,
definitely could have done the party foul there on the NBA, huh?
Yep. You could have. Kind of glad you didn't. But there is a blizzard coming. Hope everybody stays safe. A blizzard of snow. A weather event.
Yeah, snowstorm.
That's Luke Braun. That's Arif Hassan. We'll be back on Thursday as a group. Luke and I will have a draft show coming up tomorrow. Talk more Vikings angles of this draft. Can't wait for that. But it's the Minnesota Football Party. Thanks so much for watching. Find us on YouTube, on audio, or on Roku or Amazon Fire. We'd appreciate that as well. See you, everyone.